Chapter 7 The Ways to Say Goodbye. 20 years later, you find yourself in Surprise, Arizona, walking up to your mother's empty house. A few of the cacti in front have Santa hats on them. It is the year 2049, and your mother has just passed away. Her stroke 2 years ago brought her to the emergency room, and the doctors could not save her. You sometimes second-guess yourself. Should you have given up your dreams to make surgical robots instead? But you know Mum wouldn't have wanted that. Robots roamed the streets of the neighborhood, performing little errands for the retired people of the community. Economists say the technology that America developed for the war 20 years ago was also what kept it out of recession, and your mum's generation was able to retire comfortably, with lots of cheap robots to perform errands for them in their old age. You unlock the front door with the prox card the lawyer gave you. Inside, you find your mother's cleaning robots still busily puttering about the house, cleaning up. You cobbled them together in your mum's place as gifts for Mum. The do-it-yourself breadboards, wires and motors look out of place in Mum's homey living room, but at least they were autonomous enough that Mum felt comfortable hitting the on button and letting them do their thing. The little devices are bright enough to plug themselves in when they are done, but not bright enough to know that their master is gone, their purpose in life obsolete. Photos of you and Arachne hang in the living room. You were always impressed at the way Mum recognized that Arachne was just as much your child as anyone. You would have thought she would have trouble adjusting to the idea, old-fashioned person that she was, but no, she understood instantly. It occurs to you, looking through all of this stuff, that the whole time you were concerned about the future of your creation, Arachne, Mum was excited for you in the same way. You were her creation, miraculously walking about the earth, so full of intelligence, accomplishing great things. Mum left everything here to you. As executor of the estate, even the things you don't want are yours to deal with. What will you do with all of these things in Mum's house? Keep it all? Sell what can be sold and toss the rest? Or a museum? How much fame do I have? Local celebrity? You know what, yeah. Have a museum. Inadvertently, Mum's hoard is the perfect starting point for a museum about you and the rise of robots in the 21st century. Many of your robot gifts to her are decades old, yet also still factory sealed. You make some phone calls and find investors willing to back the venture. You think Mum would not mind her stuff being put to disuse. She always did like to show you off. Later that day you set out for home. Your car navigates the twists and turns of your mother's old neighborhood by itself as it heads for the local airfield. You recall in your youth that you had some notion you might make cars intelligent enough to hold a conversation. Now you're a little sad you never got around to it, though the technology does exist. You find the inferior AIs installed by car manufacturers irritating and bought a car without the feature. You pull out a tablet and begin to read the newspaper as your car does its work silently and efficiently. You feel the lurch of acceleration and you know without looking up that you are airborne. Where did you and Arachne decide to spend the rest of your days? Only American options. Cambridge, Massachusetts. Still have fond memories of going to MIT. Palo Alto, where I went to grad school. Vancouver. Yes, definitely. Although Alaska does sound intriguing. At least to visit, I'd rather stay in Vancouver and have a permanent residence there. You've seen enough of the United States, perhaps more than you wanted to see. If Canada is the same wine in a different bottle, well, at least you don't know where that bottle has been. It's dark out by the time you make it home. Winter always catches you by surprise that way. You live in a 2-story house you purchased a while back, a luxury by today's standards since most people rent apartments. Most people these days would at least rent out a room or two to another family, but being a robot maker means you want to leave room for additions to the family. You check the porch more out of habit than expectation that you'll get any snail mail and find a package wrapped in brown paper. Hesitantly, you peer at it more closely and find it's from Josh. You bring it inside and find amid the cellulose packing peanuts, a 2040 Alaska Cabernet Sauvignon and a card. Josh wishes you the best this holiday season, and he wanted to let you know he started a charitable foundation for kids coming out of juvenile hall and trying to figure out what to do with their lives. Finally got my wish to change the world in a way I was unequivocally proud of, and I have you to thank for it in part. Merry Christmas, Josh. You peek into Arachne's room. It's busy trying to construct what looks like a small version of itself. So intent is Arachne that when you say, "Hi Arachne," it practically jumps. "Hello, master." With this minimally sufficient greeting, it continues to concentrate on its work. Sometimes having a robot is an awful lot like having a cat. "You're creating a child?" you ask tentatively. Arachne nods. "I recalled my early days when you were still explaining the world to me," it says. "And I came to the conclusion that to really understand the world, one must try explaining it to another." "I'm not sure I understand it better," you say, "but I think it does force me to think about it. Maybe that's a path to understanding." "Indeed," Arachne says, as if this obviously were the logical conclusion of what it was saying. It takes a moment to realize something's not right. It's like the opposite of a headache. Your head feels a little too light. You can't see very well. You're not sure when you stopped seeing very well. But when you think about it, you realize you can't really see Arachne in front of you. There's also a roaring in your ears, like static. Was I a robot all this time? You think absently. Maybe that explains everything. "Master?" Arachne asks. "What's wrong? You look pale." You realize that now you can't see anything, you only hear Arachne's voice. "This is what it's like to not see," you think distantly. "It's not black, it's not anything." "Help," you say faintly. You're sitting on a cliff next to the sea. It is the setting of the dream you first had as a graduate student. The day you started to build Arachne, but beside you, instead of the human-like robot of that dream, it's Arachne in all its gangly awkwardness. "I'm sorry, master," Arachne says. "You wanted to make someone more like a human, and you made me instead. I think I never could be the companion you wanted." "It's okay, Arachne. You're everything I dreamed." "Thank you, master." Arachne puts its Inspector Gadget arms around you, and the two of you sit in silence, watching the sun set. You awaken in a hospital room. It smells like cleaning agent, and the walls and countertops are bare steel, cleaned and shined until reflective. "Master, you're awake." Arachne crawls up to your side. Your doctor, a woman in her 40s with slicked back, black hair, smiles. "Good morning, Mr. Kwane." She removes the nectacle from her eye, powers it down so the little windows and numbers reflected in its glass blink off, and slips it into the pocket of her white lab coat. "Why don't you tell me what happened? I have some guesses from your scans, but I want to hear you tell it." You tell the doctor briefly about how you passed out back at your mum's place. Arachne simply listens with undisguised curiosity. You hesitate because you can still recall your dream, but it seems very personal and not necessarily relevant. "I had a dream, a familiar one." You shake your head. "Then I woke up here." "Well, I don't mean to alarm you, but you've had a stroke," the doctor says gently. "A stroke?" you say in disbelief. "But I'm not that old. I'm hardly past 50. "I'm afraid the news gets worse," the doctor says. "You carry a newly identified genetic disorder called Algernon's disease. You have too many of the genes that promote neural branching and glucose consumption, which at a certain point becomes harmful." "Harmful how?" you ask. "That just seems to be a recipe for increased intelligence." "It is," the doctor says. "There have only been a handful of other cases, and they all became wealthy entrepreneurs and inventors, one of whom funded the research that led to our understanding of the disease. But starting from the age of 50 or so, or occasionally earlier if you're under a great deal of stress, Algernon's victims get seizures or strokes, often accompanied by hallucinatory visions." Under a great deal of stress. Could your first dream about the robot companion have been one of these episodes? You had stayed up all night, so you had assumed you'd simply passed out from exhaustion. What if it were one of these episodes? "But was there anything I could have done? Is there anything I can do now?" "There was nothing you did wrong," the doctor says gently. "I know it must seem as if it's your fault somehow, but nobody gets to keep on living forever just because they've made the right choices. Everybody dies of something." "I just wish it didn't have to come so soon," you say. The doctor nods. "Well, it may not have to. I've looked at your scans. Surgery is an option. We can either try to excise the neurons that are acting up without replacement, or try to replace them with an artificial neural network." "So I'd be part AI," you say speculatively. "That sounds interesting." "Yay," Arachne says. "You should be aware that most patients report a side effect of loss of emotional effect," the doctor says. "The pattern recognition of the damaged tissue would be there, but without the full suite of neurotransmitters, some of the emotional signals running around your brain would find their lines cut." The doctor looks very serious for a moment. Also, I don't want to downplay the very real chance that you could die in surgery. A slip of the needle could trigger a final epileptic response and death. Of course, it's all done with robots these days, but you may or may not find that reassuring. On the whole, you don't find that reassuring. The robots you made weren't known for their grace and their state-of-the-art. And if I don't have any surgery at all, you ask. The doctor shrugs. You could have 6 months or 6 years. I will create a robot body and brain for myself. I'm not attached to this squishy meat. I'll undergo surgery to remove the damaged tissue. On hearing that you will undergo surgery, Arachne says, "But why don't you want to be part robot?" "We can talk about it later," you tell Arachne. "Very well," says the robot. The doctor. "You can schedule an appointment for your surgery on the way out. Good day." You schedule a surgical appointment for the following week at the front desk and leave the hospital in a somber mood. When you get home, Arachne quickly hides in its room and shuts the door. You find the house too quiet for your comfort. It occurs to you that it's very late in life for you to be alone. What will you pour yourself? Water. You're not drinking alcohol, you just had a stroke. You pour yourself a glass of water and put on some music. What song would you like to listen to tonight? I do not know any of them. Shiny Things by Tom Waits, sure. In the background, the late Tom Waits sings a slow, melancholy song while plucking the melody on a banjo. The things a crow puts in his nest, they're always things he finds that shine best. "Master?" Arachne says, padding into the living room. The light from the living room chandelier dances across Arachne's metal exterior, making it sparkle with 1,000 lights. Somehow he'll find a silver dime, a piece of twine from a valentine. You feel compelled to put a hand on Arachne's masked head and rest it there. Arachne raises one of its Inspector Gadget arms to touch your hand. "I'm glad you're here, Master." You nod. "I feel the same, Arachne. The only thing I want that shines is to be king there in your eyes." "It's time for bed," you say to Arachne. "Yes, Master," Arachne says. "And be your only shiny thing." You drift to sleep. The next day, you take Arachne to the park just outside Vancouver, hoping walking around one of its favorite kind of places will cheer it up. The idea that you may not always be around seems to have put Arachne in a somewhat melancholy mood. "I'm not young anymore either, Master," Arachne says. "You might not think of me as aging, but technology ages even faster than people. I look just old and clunky compared to the robots around us. When you built me, people would throw away their computers after just 4 years, their phones after 2. "Nobody's going to throw you away," you assure Arachne. "Without you, I'll probably stop working someday." Arachne looks off into the distance. "If I die, Master, do you think I will continue to exist after death in some form?" You live on in the ways you changed people's lives, Arachne. Arachne looks troubled. "But the person whose life I changed the most was yours, Master." "That's probably... oof," you say, because Arachne throws its Inspector Gadget arms around you at that point. Arachne gives you a solemn look. "If you die, I will destroy myself as well." Most humans would love to have the opportunity you have to keep exploring. Take it. Arachne thinks, then nods resolutely. "Yes, Master." The sun is setting, so you head home before it gets dark. You recall from your earliest days making chatbots that the easiest parts of the conversation for an AI were always the beginning and the end. As in a chess game, there are only so many ways to open. "Hello," "Heya," "Sup." And as in a chess game, once the action is done, there are only so many ways to make it so many ways it makes sense to close. We should do this again sometime, or it's getting late. The pieces are off the board and some moves will never be made. So too, with life, there are only so many ways to say goodbye. A week later, you arrive at the hospital for surgery. Your surgeon greets you warmly in the waiting room. "I'll be just a moment." You wait for a few minutes, then the surgeon comes out again. "Right this way and have a seat in the chair." Your chair is itself a robot of sorts, full of motorized parts able to swing in and out. You wonder briefly just how intelligent it is. You have a moment of panic as you realize you may die here. This place may be the last place you are ever alive. You now begin to understand the sort of person who would simply want to live out life without ever stepping foot in such a place. I'm just going to put this mask over your face, the surgeon says. Breathe normally and eventually you will lose consciousness. You wonder what it will feel like to lose consciousness, and you try to pay close attention to the process. You stand before a giant door, much larger than you, that leads to the singularity. You aren't sure how you know this. It is dark here, but the light from beyond the door promises immortality and a better tomorrow. The companion from your dream of the seaside sits on the steps, waiting for you. You think, I'm so close, the singularity is right there. If you can only find a way through that door. Are you ready to leave behind human existence? Asks the robot companion. No, there's so much I haven't done. Your robot companion smiles. Now you understand. The robot lifts off its face to reveal your own. What you truly wanted was to create a better you, and you didn't finish. Oh. What you truly wanted was to create a better you, and you didn't finish. No, you agree, I didn't. Nobody does, but I'm here with you. Don't be afraid. All right. The two of you hold hands as you pass into the light. The end. All right. There we go. That's it for Choice of Robots. Let's take a quick last look at the stats. We died at the age of 54. 75% human. We've got our own Wikipedia page and disposable income. No romance. Arachne is apparently a transhuman with an autonomy of 31. 18 military, 14 empathy, 6 grace. All of our relationships are terrible except for President Irons. And Josh is average, I guess. US is in favor in the world power balance over China. And yeah, that's it. You chose to undergo surgery to remove the damaged tissue in your brain. Your surgery, however, was unsuccessful, and the vision of the robot companion proved to be the harbinger of your death. Alright, there we go. Wait, there was something that said next here. Okay, that's just that. Alright, I hope you enjoyed Choice of Robots. I don't know if I'll ever play another different path of sorts. It could be interesting, I guess. It all depends on whether you'd want to see it. And yeah, as I said, I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys in the next project. Bye.